I'm Dr. Rick Curry. Today we're diving into one of the most underestimated skills in communication, listening. Now people often think that listening is passive, that we just sit back and let words hit our ears, but it's not. Listening is an active process of meaning making. Think back to the last time that you truly felt heard. What made it different? Chances are it wasn't just the words, it was the attention and the understanding that someone gave you behind those words. When we learn to listen well, people will trust you more. Our conflicts will shrink and our influence will grow. By the end of today's lesson, I'll give you some practical ways to sharpen your listening so that you can communicate with more clarity, more respect, and more impact. Listening is kind of like Wi-Fi. When the connection is weak, well, everything else in the conversation seems to buffer a bit. Think about it. We spend over half of our time listening. That's more than reading or even speaking. And yet most of us have never really been taught how to listen. When we think about communication as a process, we almost always think about it in terms of our ability to speak. But yet most of the communication process is listening. That's why listening really matters. It's not just about hearing words. It's about the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. It's paying attention. It's making sense of what's being said and then responding in a way that shows that you understand. Most people would say that they're good listeners, but what they really mean is that they're good hearers. Hearing, though, is passive. Our ears pick up sound whether we want them to or not. We hear the sounds around us, but that doesn't make us a good listener. Listening is active. It requires our focus. It requires interpretation or decoding of what a message is, and then it requires effort on our part. And when we don't do it well, messages get misunderstood, connections break down, and communication can fail. I love this quote by Stephen Covey. It says, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply." Covey nails it here. Most of us don't listen to understand. We're already crafting our response in our head while the other person is still talking. And the problem with that is, if you're listening with the intent to reply, well, you're not really listening at all. You're rehearsing. Real listening requires pressing pause on that inner script in our head and actually tuning in to what is being said. So you see that listening isn't just hearing words. It's showing up. It's paying attention. It's making the conversation work. And that's exactly where we're headed today. In this lecture, we're going to break it down. What listening really is, why it matters so much in our relationships and our careers, and some practical tips you can start using right away to help you become a better listener. That's straight facts right there. Listening is like group projects. Everyone says they're doing it, but hey, I know only one or two of you actually are. Now, when we think about listening, we usually think about our ears because that is what we are using to physically hear, but that is actually only part of it. There are four main organs that we use to listen. Ears to hear the words, eyes to catch the nonverbal cues like expressions and gestures, the mind to process and make sense of the message, and then lastly, the heart. And we use the heart to connect with empathy and really understand the person and not just the words. So you see, listening isn't just about sound waves hitting your eardrums. It's about bringing your whole self into the conversation. And let's be honest, if you're only using your ears, well, you're basically listening on airplane mode. We have to have the physical ability to hear a message, but most of the listening process is actually done through our nonverbals and our interpretation. And that's why we have the old saying, seeing is believing. I need to see something with my own eyes for me to believe that to be true. And even then, sometimes we see things and we don't believe it, but our heart tells us otherwise. This is when in personal relationships, someone may say, hey, your boyfriend or your girlfriend was doing XYZ, and you just don't want to believe that that person could have hurt you in such a way. And so you need to see it with your own eyes before your heart will allow you to accept that. And sometimes you see it with your own eyes and your heart says, this can't be true. There must be another explanation. And so sometimes our ability to see and feel and process with our brains, that can complicate the communication process. So there are a lot of different types of barriers to listening, and a barrier is just something that keeps us from being able to listen effectively. It could be noise and distractions, phone buzzing, side conversations going on around you. It could even be your own thoughts going on inside your head. We could also have prejudice or bias, and that's when we decide ahead of time, what someone really means, and so we stop listening because we've already decided exactly what that person is trying to say in our own head. Thinking ahead, this is the classic one. We're so busy planning our response to what that person is saying that we miss the message in its entirety. We're not listening, we're rehearsing what we're going to say. These barriers don't mean that we can't listen, but they can explain why effective listening takes more effort and more practice. Sometimes the barrier is just the space that we're in. Chatter, construction noise outside, someone's music playing too loud. Noises around us are competing with the message that we're trying to hear. And even the best listener can't focus when the environment around them is working against them. We also have physiological barriers, and these could be actual hearing deficiencies. So for some people, the challenge isn't distraction. It may be physical. They could have hearing loss. They could be fatigued, or even being sick can make it hard to process what someone else is saying to us. It reminds us that listening isn't just about effort, but it's also about ability. When we look at psychological barriers, being preoccupied is if you've ever tried to listen while being stressed out about other things that you've got to do, your brain can only juggle so much at one time. Message overload is when all of that information is coming in and your brain just sort of says, hey, I can't process all of this right now. Think about it like Netflix. When Netflix says, hey, are you still watching? Well, yeah, but usually only sort of watching. You're probably doing something else. You're distracted. The same thing happens in communication. Egocentrism is when we are too focused on our own perspective, not just our perspective, but the belief that our perspective is the best perspective. And as a result of that, it's like listening in the anticipation of answering, well, how does this affect me? Instead of what are they trying to say? We also often have this fear of looking ignorant, and sometimes we pretend that we understand what someone is saying instead of asking questions because we don't want to come across as being unintelligent or unknowledgeable. We've seen what listening is and what gets in the way, so how do we actually get better at it? Well, here's a few practical tips. Be present in any conversation that you're having. Put your phone down, look up, make eye contact, give someone your full attention. Don't interrupt people when they speak. Silence isn't awkward, it's respect. Show understanding, and you can do this through your nonverbals. You can nod, you can give facial expressions, little verbal cues like, oh yeah, I see. That keeps the connection alive and shows people that you're listening. Ask questions. This shows that you're engaged and that you're trying to understand more about the topic that the person is speaking on. Practice empathy. Empathy is really key to the human connection. Don't just listen to the words that people are saying. Try to interpret and feel the feeling behind them. You see, good listening doesn't happen by accident. It's a skill that you practice, and when you do, it changes every part of your communication. A skill means that with time and preparation, you can become better at it. It really is a skill set. If you were to ask my colleagues and people that I've worked with across multiple states and institutions to tell you about me as a professor or as a person, one of the top characteristics people would say is that I'm a good listener. And that's not by accident. It's because it's a skill set that I have practiced over time, and it started in my professional career. I worked in collections, and then I worked in sales, and then I worked in mortgages, and then I was an investment banker. And in all of those professional roles, I excelled. It wasn't because I was the smartest person in the room. It was because I was a good listener. I understood that listening was a skill set that could open doors for me professionally, and ultimately to use that skill set to have more success. And success means money, and it means opportunity. So from personal experience, I tell you that listening is a skill set that is worth investing in for your own future. Let's examine 4 faulty assumptions now that people often have about listening. So it's easy to assume that communication only depends on how well the speaker delivers their message, but in reality, the listener shares equal responsibility. It's a 50-50 street here. Even the clearest message can fail if the listener isn't actively engaged. So is effective communication the sender's responsibility, the sender of the message? False. It requires both of us. Is listening passive? No. It requires focus, feedback, and effort. The third assumption is that talking has more advantages. You see, in our culture, we often glorify the talkers. The ones with the best stories, the loudest voices in the room tend to be the person that gets recognized. But in truth, listening gives us more power because we gain information, we build trust, and we strengthen our relationships. Silence can actually be your superpower. And fourth, listening is a natural ability. And you guessed it, nope, that's also false. You see, we may be born with ears, but that doesn't make us effective listeners from birth. Listening is a skill, and it has to be practiced to be improved. It's just like public speaking, or writing, or playing a sport, or playing a musical instrument. It requires practice. Assuming listening is an automatic skill set is why so many people are really bad at it. So now let's do an interactive activity, and you're going to answer each of these questions for yourself with yes or no. I usually think it's the speaker's job to make their message clear, not mine to figure it out. I sometimes zone out because I think listening doesn't require much effort. I'd rather talk than listen. Talking feels like it gets me more attention or power. And last, I believe I'm naturally a good listener without any need to practice it. If you answered yes to any of those statements, well, congratulations. It means you're human. You see, we all make these mistakes in our listening. So why is listening important? Well, I'm starting here with the fact that you reduce conflict. And this is key because conflict impacts our personal and our professional relationships. Misunderstandings are one of the biggest causes of conflict. I don't think most people go through life looking for ways to hurt us. I think sometimes people say and they do things that we misunderstand, or they say or they do something in a way that we don't appreciate, and our inability to communicate in those moments, or their inability to communicate in those moments, that can create conflict. And as a result of that, if you're a better listener, well, you're going to reduce conflict. So listening cuts down the drama before it starts sometimes. You also get more information out of the people around you. So people share more openly when they feel heard, when they feel seen and valued. You will also increase people's trust. And so when other people feel that you're actually listening, they're going to view you as being more reliable and more supportive. You will understand how to better motivate other people, and listening helps you pick up on what actually matters to people. Now, I told you briefly, I was a sales manager. I worked in mortgages, and I was very successful in that role. In fact, at one point, I was the number one sales officer for mortgages in the southeastern United States. That covered 11 states across the southeast, and I was the number one loan officer. Not just for 1 month, I was the number one loan officer for 18 out of 19 months. One of the things that we would do as loan officers is we would get our business in one of a few ways. People would either call in and they would say, hey, what's your interest rates? That would be a common thing they would call about. Now, most people would say, well, our interest rates, they can range between 5 and 9% depending upon your credit, income, and some other factors. Would you like to do an application? I'll be happy to tell you what interest rate you would qualify for a purchase or refinance. Well, guess what most people would say? No, I'm just checking. And they'd hang up. I viewed that as a lost opportunity. So when people would call and I would get the call and they would say, hey, can you tell me what your interest rate is? I say, sure, I'd be happy to help you with that today. Are you looking to purchase or are you looking to refi? I'll give you a specific example. I had a lady, she called and I asked her that. She says, I'm looking to purchase. I said, have you already found the home that you want to purchase? Or are you just looking to get pre-qualified to see what your options are? She said, oh, I've already found a home. I said, oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. I know that's a really cool and exciting step. Tell me a little bit about the house. And guess what she did? She started telling me a little bit about the house. And she started naming off, it had a nice backyard, it was in a good school district. And I said, oh, do you have kids? Oh yeah, I have a daughter. Oh, that's cool. So she's really going to like playing in that backyard, I know. And then she's like, yeah, she's 7 years old. And then I'm like, well, what's her name? And she tells me that she just got out of an abusive relationship. She had moved back near her family and she was starting over. So because I was a good listener and because I asked more open-ended questions, I got more information. And that information allowed me to realize that this just wasn't about buying a home for her. It was about a new beginning. It was about safety for her daughter. It was about security. It was about moving her life forward. So you can see here, effective listening allows you to understand how to motivate other people in a way that moves them forward to act. In professional settings, that is a very good skill set to have. And lastly, as a result of all of those things, we will inspire commitment in the people around us, because when we feel heard, well, we're more likely to buy in. And that's regardless of if that's in the workplace, in relationships, or even in group projects. So practice those tips to become a more effective communicator. We've talked about why it's important. Now let's talk about how you can improve. Here's 7 tips to implement. 1, practice active listening. Show you're engaged, nod your head, provide brief verbal cues. Hey, I see you. Go on. Yeah, that's awesome. Don't just hear, show people that you're actually listening. Paraphrase and summarize so you can repeat back the key points in your own words. So you're going to want to use context to shape how you say that, but you're going to paraphrase and summarize, and that is a good way of showing people that you were actually listening to what it is that they were saying. And it also helps prevent misunderstandings, because they're going to say, that's what I said, or that's what I mean. And as a result of that, well, then it should be clear to you. We want to ask open-ended questions. That's the example that I gave you with the woman who called in and asked about interest rates. So instead of asking yes/no questions, use questions that invite deeper explanation. I love saying, tell me more about that. All right, that's cool. Tell me more. I use that one personally and professionally because people like to talk. And guess what? They like to talk about themselves. One of the best books that I ever read, and I credit this book to a lot of the success I had as a young professional, was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. If you've never read this book, go pick up a copy. This book, in it, one of the chapters, it talks about how we will make more friends in life by taking a genuine interest in other people than we will ever make by trying to make people interested in us. Let me say that again. You will make more friends in life by taking a genuine interest in other people than you will ever make by trying to make people interested in you. And that stuck with me, and I use that to this day. And it is one of the foundational elements that I use to be a more effective listener. Because most people like to talk about themselves when we have new relationships, new friendships, when we meet people, it could be personally, professionally, it really doesn't matter the setting. The first thing that we want to talk about is us. We want to tell people all about us, our hobbies, our passions, our views on life, everything. We like to talk. But when we are doing all of the talking and someone else is forced to do all the listening and we don't know those people, then it makes us look like we're self-centered, that the focus and the spotlight is only on us. And people can feel like, okay, well, this is cool. They seem like a nice person, but they don't really seem that interested in me. So you should always take a genuine interest in other people instead of talking about yourself. So when I meet people for the first time, and I'm just striking up a general conversation, I'll find something that is interesting. I'll be like, oh, well, tell me more about that. That seems really cool. And guess what people will do? They will talk. And they will talk, and they will talk. And you'll nod your head, or I'll nod my head, and I'll smile, and I'll do good nonverbals. And then guess what? They start to smile. And then something really cool and fascinating happens. They then ask me, well, what about you? Tell me about you. See, that's the natural flow there, is that when we get other people to tell us about them, they will, and then naturally they are going to then become more interested in you. They're going to ask you to share, and they're going to walk away from that conversation and they're going to say, wow, that was a really nice guy. I really enjoyed that conversation. Well, why did they feel that way? They feel that way because they felt seen. They felt valued. They felt heard because you made it about them and not you. You see, listening is a key that can open up a lot of those doors for us in our relationships because it highlights the fact that we should spend more time listening to other people than we should speaking. My mom used to say as a kid, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Use it, right? That we should listen more than we speak. But that is a powerful skill set to have. And the 7th tip is just be comfortable with silence. Don't rush to fill every pause in a conversation because sometimes that silence, it gives people space to open up more deeply. I also learned this lesson as a professor a long time ago. When I ask a question in class and nobody responds, I used to be uncomfortable with that silence, and I would start to talk and I would give people the answer, or I would lead them to where I wanted the conversation to go as the teacher. And I've learned over the years, I will just sit. I will sit in that silence and wait until someone replies because it forces the engagement to be more genuine and it gets students to talk in a way that isn't me just dictating the conversation. Now, one final thing that I want to talk about in terms of listening is to give you a practical example of how you can improve your listening skills in a professional setting. Most of us will have or will work with customers or other people at some point in time in our lives. So I created the acronym LAST, L-A-S-T. If you ever deal with an upset customer, remember this acronym, LAST. You should be the last person that they have to talk to.
It's a big ass ass.
It's a big order.
It's a big order.
What, y'all gonna jump me?
No. Bitch, it is what it
Okay,
is.
well, come right here then. Come on.
According to a witness, this customer has grown impatient waiting for her large online order, so she started banging on the windows and also became physically aggressive toward one of the employees. Now, the situation is showing no signs of letting up.
You're lame.
You
You're
lame.
old. You're dusty. Bitch.
Oh,
You're
look at both of y'all.
Moments later, one of the employees kicks it up a notch. The thrown milkshake mostly misses the customer,
Come on, sir. Come on, sir.
but ups the stakes considerably.
Come on, sir. Come on, sir. That's why I'm calling corporate on y'all ugly ass. Get you fired. Bitch, with your $2 making ass.
The employee finally returns, not with the woman's order, but with more ammo.
I'm gonna like that stupid.
And this time, it's a direct hit.
Bitch, come on, sir.
Come on, bruh.
A coworker gets another shot in,
Come on, man.
which seems to put a damper on everyone's evening.
Y'all tripping now.
The now drink-soaked customer finally leaves without her order.
So let's look at what each of these letters in this acronym mean. The L stands for listen. So the first thing you want to do if someone is upset is you want to provide them an opportunity to tell you what happened. Most of the time in life, people just want to feel heard. We want to feel like people are listening, that they really care about our experience and what happened or what we have to say. So a lot of times an upset customer just wants to get it off their chest. They want to tell you that they've had a bad experience. So I would listen to a customer and then I would apologize because that's the A. A is apologize, and I would then summarize. I'm so sorry that has been your experience with us today. That's not the standard or the expectation that we have when it comes to customer service, and I'm really sorry that happened. So you're going to listen, you're going to apologize, and then the S stands for solve. You're going to find a solution or you're going to offer a solution. What I can do for you is, and then whatever that solution is. An important part here is sometimes you don't have the ability to provide the solution. Maybe that requires a manager or someone a little bit higher up than you to be able to provide that solution. So what I would say is, in this instance, because people don't like to repeat themselves, I would say, I really appreciate you sharing that you had this negative experience today. That is not That is not the standard or expectation that we expect in terms of how our customers are treated. I can't personally provide the solution for this. I think my manager will be able to help us. I'm going to fill them in on what's happened here, and then we're going to find a solution for you, okay? It says, and then do it. Don't have your manager come over and have them repeat their whole story. Now, they may want to repeat their whole story, but a good manager is going to listen to you, and then they're going to come over and they're going to say, hey, I talked to Rick, and Rick let me know what was going on. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Here's how we can make it right. So they're going to offer a solution. Good companies do this. I've called into companies before, like car insurance and customer service, and people will say, "Oh, I've got to get someone else on the line." And the first thing I do is, right? God, dear God, here we go. I'm gonna wait on hold for another 30 minutes for somebody else to not solve my problem, and then that person comes on the phone. Hi, Rick. I've got Brad on the phone, and I've informed Brad about the problem and what we need to do here, and Brad's going to be able to take this over from here. You have a great day, okay? So they're doing what I've just told you what you should do in customer service. That is a good example. A bad example is when someone comes on the phone and they just transfer you over, and then that person has no idea, and you have to start over and repeat yourself. The T stands for think. You're going to thank them for their service. USAA does this all the time when I call. They'll say, Dr. Curry, thank you for being a loyal and valued customer for the last 17 years. Now, they're not just saying that to say it. They're saying it because they understand that thanking me for being a valued customer is going to ensure that I feel valued. And if I feel valued, guess what? I'm going to be likely to continue to stay with them as a company. I will add there as a caveat here, especially in customer service type jobs, you can thank them and you can provide some incentive for them to come back. We tend to be loyal as human beings. We have our favorite restaurants, we have our favorite stores, and sometimes we just have bad experiences. But we're not going to write a restaurant off or write a store off completely on the first instance of something bad happening. So if someone listens to us, they apologize, they offer a solution, they thank us, and then maybe provide an incentive for us to come back. I'm really sorry, Rick, that I'm really sorry that there was an issue with your food today. Pick out a dessert. I'm going to desserts on us, and here's a coupon for a free appetizer on your next visit. You better believe I'm going back to Texas Roadhouse. Those rolls are too damn good. You better believe I'm going to go back and I'm going to get that free appetizer. I'm going to give you another opportunity to earn my business because you're one of my favorite restaurants. And so when we listen, apologize, solve, and then thank people and then provide a solution, people will stick with us and they'll give us an opportunity to make it right again. As we wrap up, here's the big takeaway. Listening is more than just hearing words. It's about connecting with people, building trust, and creating understanding. The better you listen, the better communicator you will become. And that doesn't just make you a better student. That's going to make you a better friend, a better partner, a better coworker, and a better leader. So as you leave this lecture, remember that good communication starts with good listening. My goal for you is that you go from being an okay listener to being an excellent listener to being a brilliant listener to being an expert listener. Make being a good listener important to you. If you learn and take away anything else in this class, focus on your listening skills and improving in that area, because I promise you, you will see the benefit from that in every aspect of your life.